POV, you didn't waste your teenage years and now it's starting to show. Back then, nobody really understood why you took your future so seriously. While everyone else talked about making it someday, you couldn't stop thinking about what your life would actually look like a few years from now. It wasn't fear of being rich or famous. It was fear of growing up with no direction. School ended at 3 p.m. Your workday was just beginning. On the outside, you looked like every other student, walking home with a backpack, tired from classes, already thinking about tomorrow's homework. But the moment you stepped into your room, everything changed. You dropped your bag beside the desk, turned on your laptop, and got back to work. Homework sat beside notebooks filled with ideas. One browser tab held school assignments. The next held tutorials, courses, and projects nobody had asked you to build. Your evenings weren't exciting. They were quiet. Hour after hour, you tried to learn something that your future self would thank you for. Some nights, even you questioned whether any of it made sense. Your phone would light up, friends making plans, group chats full of jokes, pictures from cafes, football matches, birthdays, and late-night hangouts. You'd stare at the screen for a few seconds, smile, then place your phone face down and open your laptop again. From the outside, it looked like an easy decision. It wasn't. Choosing long-term growth over short-term comfort rarely feels rewarding in the moment. Most of the time, it just feels lonely. You weren't avoiding fun because you thought you were better than anyone else. You simply couldn't ignore the feeling that every year you wasted would be impossible to get back. So you kept learning. You tried graphic design. You tried writing. You experimented with video editing. You looked into coding. You explored freelancing. Some things interested you. Others didn't. Some projects lasted weeks. Others never made it past the first few days. You watched videos promising fast money. You read success stories that made everything sound easy. Sometimes you believed them. Most of the time, reality had other plans. You sent messages that never received replies. You built projects nobody noticed. You spent hours fixing problems that nobody else would ever see. Weeks turned into months. Your laptop slowly filled with folders. Project 1. Final version. New idea. Last try. Half-finished files. Abandoned experiments. Plans that seemed brilliant one week and pointless the next. There were nights when you stared at the screen, exhausted, wondering if you were simply wasting your teenage years. Downstairs, life carried on as usual. Your family laughed over dinner. The television played in the background. Everything seemed normal. Meanwhile, you sat upstairs fighting thoughts nobody else could hear. Maybe this isn't worth it. Maybe everyone else is right. Maybe I should stop trying so hard. You weren't embarrassed because you had failed. You were embarrassed because you cared so much, yet had so little to show for it. If someone had asked how many hours you'd spent learning, you probably wouldn't have answered. Not because you were ashamed of the work. Because you weren't sure it meant anything yet. People would tell you to relax. You've got plenty of time. Enjoy being young. They meant well, but those words never gave you peace. Deep down, you knew time wasn't something you wanted to waste. Not because you expected success overnight. Because you wanted to become someone your future could depend on. So instead of quitting, you made one quiet decision. You stopped chasing shortcuts. You stopped looking for the fastest way to make money. And you started asking a different question. What skill can I become genuinely good at? That question changed everything. Instead of jumping from one opportunity to the next, you stayed with one skill long enough to understand it. You stopped measuring progress by money. You started measuring it by improvement. Every week, you became a little better than the week before. Not dramatically, just enough to notice. Design stopped being about making things look cool. You started understanding why certain layouts caught people's attention, why spacing mattered, why colors changed emotions. Writing stopped being about filling a page with words. You learned how a single sentence could make someone stop scrolling, how simple language often carried the most powerful message. Whatever skill you chose, you stopped treating it like a shortcut. You treated it like a craft. Your room slowly changed. The desk was still the same. The chair still squeaked. The laptop still lagged whenever too many tabs were open. But you were changing. Your notebooks filled with lessons instead of random ideas. Your bookmarks became tutorials, books, and resources instead of easy money videos. Without realizing it, discipline stopped feeling like something you forced yourself to do. It became part of who you were. Not everyone understood. Some friends stopped inviting you out as often. Some assumed you were always too busy. You missed birthdays, late-night drives, inside jokes you only heard about later. Sometimes it hurt. You'd wonder if you were giving up too much, if everyone else was making memories while you sat alone at your desk. But every time that thought appeared, you reminded yourself why you started. Not to impress people, not to become famous, not to prove anyone wrong. You wanted the freedom that comes from being capable. Months passed. Then one ordinary morning, something happened. Nothing dramatic. No music. No celebration. Just a notification. Someone had seen your work. They wanted your help. The payment wasn't life-changing. To most people, it probably looked small. But to you, it meant something completely different. It wasn't proof that you had made it. It was proof that your effort had real value. For the first time, something you had spent months learning solved a problem for someone else, and they were willing to pay for it. You sat there for a moment, not because of the amount, because of what it represented. Every late night, every failed project, every ignored message, every time you wanted to quit, none of it had been wasted. You didn't rush to spend the money. You invested part of it back into learning. Better tools, better resources, more practice. You understood something many people never do. Skills grow slowly, but once they're built, they stay with you. So you kept going. One project became another. One client led to the next. Some months were good. Others weren't. There were still mistakes, still setbacks, still moments when things didn't go according to plan. But now you had something more valuable than confidence. You had experience, and experience gave you something that motivation never could. The ability to keep moving, even when you didn't feel inspired. Years passed. School became a memory. Everyone stepped into adult life carrying different expectations. Some found jobs they enjoyed. Some were still searching. Some realized they had no idea what they actually wanted. Life didn't suddenly become easy. It rarely does. There were still unexpected expenses, still difficult decisions, still days when nothing seemed to go your way. But there was one difference. When a problem appeared, you had something to rely on. Not luck, not shortcuts. Your skills. The hours you spent learning as a teenager had quietly become part of who you were. One afternoon, you met a few old classmates for coffee. The conversation started the way it always does. Work, life, plans. Everyone had a different story. Some talked about jobs they didn't enjoy. Some were trying to figure out their next step. Some admitted they felt stuck. Eventually, someone looked at you and asked, "So, what have you been doing?" You answered honestly. You talked about your work, the projects you'd built, the people you'd helped, the freedom that came from having a skill people genuinely valued. Someone smiled and said, "You're lucky." You smiled back. Maybe they were right. Every person is blessed in different ways, but you also knew there was another side to the story. They hadn't seen the evenings you spent learning while everyone else was out. They hadn't seen the projects that failed, the emails that went unanswered, the moments you questioned yourself. People rarely see the years behind the result. They only see the result itself. On your way home, you found yourself standing outside your parents' house. You walked upstairs, opened the door, and looked around your old room. The same desk, the same chair, the same window where the sunlight used to fall across your keyboard every afternoon. For a moment, it all came rushing back. The uncertainty, the frustration, the quiet hope that maybe one day all those small efforts would mean something. You smiled, not because everything had gone perfectly. It hadn't. Not because you had achieved every dream. You hadn't. You smiled because that younger version of you didn't give up. They kept learning when nobody was watching. They stayed honest when shortcuts looked tempting. They chose patience over quick results. And that decision changed the direction of your life. If you're watching this while you're still in those teenage years, don't believe you need to have your entire future figured out today. You don't. You don't need to become successful overnight. You don't need everyone to understand your goals. What matters is that you keep improving. One lesson, one project, one honest hour at a time. Learn skills that solve real problems. Treat people well. Stay curious. Stay patient. Be someone others can trust. Progress isn't always visible. Some days it feels like nothing is changing, but every honest effort shapes the person you're becoming. Years from now, you won't remember every late night. You won't remember every tutorial or every mistake, but you'll be grateful that you didn't waste the opportunity to grow while you had the chance. Your future won't be built by one lucky moment. It will be built by hundreds of ordinary days when you chose to learn instead of making excuses. So keep showing up, keep learning, keep improving. Your future self won't thank you because life became perfect. They'll thank you because when the opportunity finally came, you were ready for it.